This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The 1865 Match Report.
Good evening and welcome to the 1865 Match Reports with me, Rich Ferraro, on the day that Forest won 2-1 at home to Huddersfield Town in the fifth round of the FA Cup. And we'll be joined by Tom in just a few minutes. But before we hear from him, let's just give you a recap of the team news. And Forest didn't make that many changes, but Huddersfield did. And Forest basically stuck with Ethan Horvath in goal, which was the big question on everyone's lips. And they also brought in Max Lowe after he couldn't play against his parent club on Friday. And Sam Surridge started up front. So we had Horvath in goal, Worrell, Cook and McKenna across the back, Spence and Lowe at wing-backs, with Yates and Garner in midfield, and then Zinkernagel playing behind Johnson and Surridge up front. Huddersfield made quite a lot of changes to their team. They also didn't play with a recognised centre-forward, which is a bit of a surprise to me, especially as Danny Ward has been in such good form, and they also have Jordan Rhodes on the bench. Anyway, I'm joined by Tom, and we'll come to you in just a minute. But before we do, let's hear the view from the opposition. So we'll go to Brady Frost, who's from the Huddersfield podcast, and he takes that chance.
When I saw the lineup, it was 6 changes to the side that started against Peterborough, and we didn't start with a recognised striker. So I've got to be honest that when I did see the lineup, I was like, oh, not sure about this. I do think it was a fair result, though. I think I actually predicted on our podcast that you guys would win 2-1. I just had a feeling it was one of them games where we would make a lot of changes. And, you know, we've seen you've got a couple of scalps in the FA Cup. And I just, you know, I just had a feeling it proved right. I thought you deserved to win, to be honest. I think we looked... it was a bit of a jarring performance from us. We didn't really look in sync, which I think is understandable when we've made 6 changes. I thought Forest were great. I thought Joe Worrell was great. Surridge, I was quite impressed by because he was very frustrating from a Huddersfield point of view. I thought he was great. I thought, Ryan Yates was great. You know, yeah, I think it was a fair result. And, I think there was a couple of key moments in it. You know, Pippa hit the post when it was 1-1. I thought that could have been interesting if that went in. But to be honest, you know, Surridge had a goal that was incorrectly ruled out for offside. So I think it was just one of them, fully deserved from Forest. I think, you know, Stevie Cooper's only lost 4 games. So it showed. I think the crowd was good tonight for Forest, and that made a big difference as well. Yeah, I think you deserve to win. And, you know, I'm not too disappointed because I think, you're a good team. And to be honest, I think we'd get battered by Liverpool anyway in the next round. Whether you can beat Liverpool in the next round, I mean, look, like you've already beaten Leicester and Arsenal, so I wouldn't rule it out. But I think, well, you know, who knows? I think you've got a chance. It's at home as well, and you've seen how much the home side in those cup games have influenced. But I don't think it'll be a whitewash for Liverpool, but I think it'll be difficult. But, you know, yeah, congratulations. And, I think you deserve to win, and best luck in the next round.
Thank you very much, Brady, and we appreciate you giving us your reaction straight after what must have been quite a disappointing defeat. Okay, so Tom, thanks for joining us. Now, a couple of things that Brady mentioned there, which we'll come back to in a little while, but the overarching thing that he said was that he thought that Forest were good value for the win, and he'd predicted a 2-1 victory to the home team. So are you pretty pleased after that?
Yeah, definitely, because it's one of those games where there's a brilliant prize at the end of it, but in the past, Forest haven't actually grabbed that chance when we've had in earlier rounds of the Cup in previous seasons. So it's one of those bit of a strange game going into it, but no, looking back on it, Forest deserved it, and they could have scored more goals, to be honest.
Yeah, well, let's go through some of the action, because Forest actually made a really positive start. I've noticed that Forest really have tried to come out the starting blocks very quickly in the last few weeks, and tonight was no exception. And we got the rewards after just after 10 minutes. when Brennan Johnson got down the right-hand side, as he often does, put in a ball into the corridor of uncertainty, as he often does, and Sam Surridge was able to sweep it home for a debut goal. Except it wasn't, was it, Tom? So we'll talk about the decision in just a second, but from where you were, did you think, hey, he's got his debut goal on his first start and it's happy days?
I did, because of how the ball come in and he's ran onto it, and he's obviously swept it in. I thought, no, this is definitely a goal. Then I've looked on the far side, and the linesman's got his flag up from where I was in Upper Bridgeford, and it wasn't long before I was getting notifications, and the replays clearly state that Sam Surridge was onside. But I'm not really surprised, because the levels of refereeing, again, it's really its ugly head. So it's just one of those, but thankfully it didn't cost us tonight.
Well, you say it didn't cost us. I mean, firstly, one thing I will say is that the linesman was absolutely in the right place. And I agree with you. From the angle that Brennan put the ball in, it looked to me like, and the way that Surridge put it in, Surridge was sweeping it in. So it's almost like he was looking slightly behind him with his body shape. So it's a bit of a surprise to see the flag go up. And I say the linesman was right there. And the replays showed, I mean, it would have been a VAR job rather than naked eye. But if there'd been VAR, it would have clearly shown that Surridge was onside, because Naby Sarr's leg was clearly, the other side of play. So it's a bit disappointing. And you say, well, it didn't cost us too much, but that's not how it felt 2 or 3 minutes later, because Forest conceded a corner a bit carelessly, I thought. And if that was careless, then the way they conceded the first goal of the night was even worse, wasn't it?
Yeah, looking at the highlights on the big screen, when the ball come in, it seemed that Huddersfield did a great job of just pinning everybody in the position where they wanted them. Then it just left Tom Lees just to leap higher than everybody and put the ball in. I think it was, to be honest, against the run of play of how we started, and it was a shock to the system. Like thinking, oh, here we go, is it going to be one of those nights? But thankfully, soon after, Sam Surridge scored a really good goal and equalised. So I think it was a good time for them, stating the obvious, but it was a good time for us to score that equalised, because I think the fans would have got a bit anxious of how the game would have panned out, and we might have not have got that. It might have been a bit similar to the game what we played just after Christmas, where they literally had one chance, put it away. We've had all the ball and haven't done anything with it. So I think it was really key that we got that equaliser pretty soon after going one down.
Yeah, so Huddersfield's opening goal came after just about 14 minutes, and Forest equalised about 15 minutes afterwards. And I think you're absolutely right. There was a degree of anxiety both around the ground, but also the players. The players looked a little bit shell shocked. So they were trying to make things happen, and just that thing of like taking your eye off the ball and just kind of not quite controlling it first time for a few minutes afterwards. I think they needed to regain their composure slightly. The unusual thing to note about Lees' goal is, as you said, the way that Huddersfield approached the set piece. Literally everyone was parked at the back stick, and that gave Lees the opportunity to run around. And Steve Cook, it has to be said, our veteran defender, the man who should be the one with all the know-how, he did lose his man. And I thought Cookie looked a little bit hesitant, not quite himself in that first half. So let's talk about the equalising goal. And three things that are really noticeable. Number one, an absolutely defence-splitting ball from Jimmy Garner. Number two, a lung-busting run from Ryan Yates. And then when Matty Pearson got the tackle in, or was it Naby Sarr? I can't remember. But got the tackle in, the ball broke to Sam Surridge, who was coming in from the left-hand side, opened his body up, and it was an emphatic finish. So after the disappointment of the goal being ruled out earlier, I think that would have been a really important moment for Sam Surridge, wouldn't it? Yeah,
definitely, because you're like thinking, that first goal is never going to come. Then, like you say, a couple of minutes after his disappointment of not scoring, it does count. And I thought he had a brilliant game tonight, Sam Surridge. And he hasn't been too bad when he's actually come off the bench, and he has contributed. And now he deserved that goal tonight. I think it showed him in the recent game against Blackburn away that he was so desperate to score that goal. And if he kept plugging away, it would come. And he did that again tonight. He wasn't too disappointed with the offside decision, and he just kept plugging away, and he got his goal, and it was a fine finish into the top corner.
Yeah, strikers need goals, don't they? And so that's very. He will feel good to have got that first goal, but also what a way to repay the gaffer for giving him his first start, resting Keenan Davis. And Surridge comes in and he scores after half an hour. And it is an important goal because, as I say, Forest had looked a little bit anxious. Now, it wasn't all going Forest's way because not long after that, well, Huddersfield went on the attack and it just sort of opened up ever so slightly. And Pippa, the right back who I mentioned earlier, found himself on the edge of the D. He played a sweeping shot, low shot, which had Horvath beaten and hit the post. Now, if your heart wasn't in your mouth at that moment, Tom, I bet it was when Sorba Thomas came in from the left-hand side on the rebound. But Horvath not only saved it, but he held it, didn't he? So that must have been a really positive moment, not only for the goalkeeper, but also for the mood inside the stadium.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at it and Horvath hasn't let anybody down in the games what he's had. And he's been pretty steady. He's steadily progressing by each game, and he has looked a lot better with the ball at his feet. And it was a really decent save, and he made some fine saves tonight to keep his ahead in the game. So I think the last 3 or 4 games, I think he's been pretty steady, to be honest.
Yeah, and the reason that save was so important to that moment is because it meant that when Forest had their chance before half-time, it meant that it was to take the lead rather than to equalise. And again, it was a ball by Jimmy Garner. This time, a free kick from the left-hand side. And I thought Worrell was going to go for the header, but I'm assuming that he had a shout because he sort of just backed out of it. And then all of a sudden, there was Yates with the freedom of Nottingham. And is it fair to say that the days of 50p head are gone? Ryan Yates knows how to head a ball now, doesn't he?
Yeah, it looks like he's been working on that because last season and start of this season, he was like getting his head on the end of crosses and set pieces, etc. And it was either keeper was saving them or going over or hitting the bar. But no, the one against Sheffield United on Friday and the one tonight, 2 brilliant headers. And that emphasised how good Ryan Yates has been playing in the last couple of games. He rightly got man of the match tonight, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Everywhere where you needed someone to get a foot in, Ryan Yates was there, and brilliant. And even when it was announced that he did get man of the match, the fans were chanting, and I've never heard that. You get like pockets of like appreciation from the crowd regarding Ryan Yates, but as a collective, everybody was like praising him tonight, and he's been brilliant. He really has. And under Steve Cooper, he's really come on as a footballer. And when he hasn't played, I can't remember what game it was where he didn't play. I thought you missed that like bit of bite in midfield. And
it was against Stoke, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. I just think with him, you just need players like that in the squad. He knows what it means to play for Forest, etc. And he just got that real hunger and desire to play for us. And you need that. So it's been brilliant in the last few months.
And as Steve Cooper said pre-match, and he said again in the live ITV interview tonight, he's a diamond. And Cooper was alluding to all of those qualities that you just mentioned, the fact that he's somebody who really understands what it means to play for Forest. He looks after himself properly in terms of his conduct off the pitch, the way he kind of eats and drinks and the way he trains. So a lot of people are really appreciating what Ryan Yates can bring now, but also Cooper has brought a new level of performance out of him, hasn't he? Anyway, that meant that we went in half-time 2-1 up.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Right, now, it's worth noting that in the second half, it was kind of a little bit more cagey than the first half, wasn't it? The first half I thought was a terrific advert for the FA Cup and for championship teams. And the second half I thought was a little bit more niggly, a little bit more cagey, a little bit more scrappy. Would you agree with me, Tom?
Yeah, I think Forest, with them getting themselves ahead in the game, it was like, let's not do anything stupid and let's just really care and have a lot of care for the football now. And start like giving it away cheaply or giving away daft free kicks. And on a whole, they did that pretty well, and they pushed Huddersfield back. And there was a couple of occasions in the second half where Horvath made some decent saves. I can't remember which. He made one where he dived to his left, and then one from the free kick.
Well, yeah, exactly. So Huddersfield had brought on Danny Ward. They'd started bringing on their first team players. So they brought on Harry Toffler, left wing back. They brought on Danny Ward as a centre forward, and they reshuffled. So they went to, broadly speaking, 4-4-2. And then later on, they kind of shuffled again because Jordan Rhodes came on. But of course, Ward has got a really good goal scoring record this season. He took a free kick from the left edge of the box after Max Lowe had brought down, I think it was Thomas, and the whole thing of lining up the wall there was a bit comical because Huddersfield put their two centre halves between the defensive wall and Ethan Horvath, so Horvath couldn't line up his wall properly. Quite an interesting tactic. And then so I was expecting it to be the right footer going round the blind side where Horvath hadn't been able to line up his wall. But actually Ward took it. It was a perfectly decent free kick, but it lacked enough power, and Horvath was able to make a decent save, but notably he pushed the ball away. And then later on, Danny Ward got down the right-hand channel. He went for a first-time effort, and that was a good save. It's one of those where you'd expect the keeper to save it, but again, he had to react sharply because it had some power on it. So those were two, again, Horvath's not let us down, and he's shown that he's a good shot stopper. He may not have the flamboyance of Samba. He's looking more confident with the ball at his feet, but he is a good shot stopper first and foremost. And so he can take a lot of confidence from tonight, I think. So it's also worth noting that as the game progressed, Forest made subs as well. So Jack Colback came on for Zinkernagel after 64 minutes, which saw the change that we expected. So Colback sitting in the midfield, presumably to add a little bit of nous and kind of defensive solidity, and Jimmy Garner able to move a little bit further forward. Just very briefly, what did you think of Zinkernagel's contribution tonight? Because in some ways he flattered to deceive, but in other ways, you look at his movement and it opened up the space for things like Ryan Yates' run that led to the first goal.
Yeah, I think it was the same on Friday, apart from where he chased the Sheffield United player back and made that terrific tackle on the edge of Forest box. He didn't really do much on Friday, and same again. His movement's there, and you do see him, but you want him to do a bit more. You want him to be a bit more creative and do something more with the ball, and it just didn't happen for him tonight. Whether Huddersfield just nullified that threat and he couldn't really stamp his authority on the game, I don't know. But that's two games where he started, and two games what he hasn't really justified his having started on the side, I thought. So when he did go off, it wasn't any surprise because he does only usually last 60 odd minutes anyway. So but no, he has his good games, Zinkernagel, and he has his okayish games. And I think it was tonight. It was just, to me, it was okay. Probably, if I'm being a bit harsh, it's probably like below average because he didn't really contribute in my eyes.
I would say he either does stuff or he doesn't. That's the way I'd categorise him. I also thought, actually, that Brennan Johnson, for 85 minutes out of the 90, was pretty quiet tonight. However, in the second half, as the game went on, we saw his value because he was able to provide that outlet ball, which did occasionally pin Huddersfield back. The other substitution came not long afterwards, and that was Keenan Davis coming on for Sam Surridge. We all expected Surridge to play maybe 65, 70 minutes to do the reverse substitution of what we've done in recent matches where Davis has been the man to be sacrificed. So I'm gonna just throw in something here. I actually think that the substitutions made Forest worse. It disrupted us slightly in the midfield because Forest's strength when they were playing well in this match was in the central midfield areas with Garner and Yates. And I think that kind of got lost slightly. What do you think?
I can see where you're coming from, but then when Davis did come on, it meant that Forest could actually keep the ball further away from our goal in the final third. And without getting a goal, or I don't think he really had a chance at Davis, to be honest, but he did a huge job for us in that final, 20-odd minutes or whatever he was on, because he just took the pressure off our back four because I think Sam Surridge was like tiring because he put so much into the game, and with Davis coming on, he just kept the ball in the final third. And I think, to be honest, I think that was a massive help for us in the game, because I think as a Huddersfield perspective, it's like they fizzled out towards the end because the ball was like going further and further away from our goal, and they were like thinking, well, we can't get the ball off Davis now. And I think that was like a massive help for us to see out.
I was saying to my wife as we were watching it, it's like when Surridge goes off, they'll be pleased that his relentless energy is gone, and then they'll be faced with Keenan Davis and they won't know what's hit them. And
exactly.
and again, the other thing that I was saying was the great thing about Davis. I don't remember last time we had a centre forward where you know that if it goes into him, it's going to stick. It really is quite a rarity. And Davis did make a telling contribution, not just in terms of being that outlet and the ball sticking to him, but he created a terrific chance going down the left-hand side. He played it across the box. Actually, the ball was a little bit too far behind. It wasn't the greatest cross in the world. Brennan Johnson did a little flick, and then it went to Jedman Spence, who then promptly hit it high and handsome over the bar, didn't he?
Yeah, we was like looking at that, thinking, I hope it's not going to haunt us, because we just needed that like bit of breathing space. Because we was looking at the clock and you're thinking, well, what was it, 86 minutes or something like that, and you're thinking, no, I hope this isn't going to come back to haunt us. Thankfully, it didn't. But as soon as the ball come across, I was half expecting that net to ripple at the Trent end, and it didn't. But it's one of those I mean, I'm not going to fault Jed Spence for the contribution he's made this season, but it's just one of those that it didn't go in, and I think he just tried to hit the ball too hard, and obviously lacking that bit of composure, what was needed at that moment in time.
Yeah, he's trying to be too clever, I think, because I think he wanted to kind of hit the roof of the net, and actually he'd have been better off just kind of guiding it rather than anything else, back where it came from, as they say. He wasn't the only one who was guilty of that, because then Jimmy Garner had a chance to do something similar as well, and the ball came in from the right-hand side. And as well, I mean, let's not forget as well that these were goal-scoring opportunities, and they go into players who have had good seasons, and Jimmy Garner will feel really quite silly because he's got great skill, a great touch, and when the ball came to him, he just took his eye off the ball and ended up just poking it over the bar when it seemed easier to score.
Yeah, I think we've all done that. Like, you celebration you're going to come up with before you've actually scored the goal, kind of thing. And I think that's saying what happened to Jimmy Garner tonight. But as a Manc lad, he'll be relishing who we've got in the next round, so I don't think he'd be too bothered about not scoring tonight. So as long as he got to the biggest prize, which is Liverpool a week on Sunday or whenever it is.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I'm going to be honest now. I don't know if I'm unusual in this respect, but I didn't even think about Liverpool until about 85 minutes. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, the next round's going to be against Liverpool, isn't it? That's going to be interesting. Did you have the same reaction, or was it on your mind all the way through?
It was like little bits. It's like you're looking around and thinking, well, if this goes according to plan, then Mane and Salah and etc. are going to be coming to the City Ground in a couple of weeks. But it's like you can never be certain until that final whistle goes. And I kept looking. The whole day, to be honest, has been dragging, because obviously we had this game. I know we've got like 2 league games coming up before the Liverpool game. But you're like, the whole day today has just been dragging, because you've been looking forward to going to the match. Because there's not many times in recent season that we've had a 5th round FA Cup match. And then the game, when it got to 65 minutes and you're thinking, no, it's only another, 25 minutes to go. It dragged and dragged. Then 5 minutes went up, and it's like, oh, is it going to happen in terms of the full-time whistle? But no, it's since I've on the way home listening to Radio Nottingham and everything, and the magnitude of who's going to be coming, and obviously the old rivalry we've had over Liverpool. I know we haven't played them since 99. So yeah, it's a long time, but no, it's about time us as Forest fans actually relish this because we haven't had too many opportunities of obviously welcoming Liverpool to the City Ground in recent years.
Well, quite. And in our WhatsApp group, so Adam, he did point out that the last time that Forest were in a FA Cup quarter-final, it was before he was born. So that's saying something. And and it's one of those things. It's one of those things as well, whereby we're looking at the fixtures. Just on a slightly different topic, it means that the Fulham match is going to have to be postponed. And depending upon when that's rearranged for, are you worried that the Cup campaign is going to cause fixture congestion that could derail the league campaign?
Well, it goes back to what we've said on the previous part of this season and everything. And it's just a matter of just enjoy it. Just the pressure since our poor start to the season where we were like, what was it, lost 6 games on the spinner or whatever like that. And I think for me, it'd be nice to obviously get into the playoffs and obviously trip to Wembley and all that type of thing. But I think it's just a matter of just enjoying this season. It's been an unbelievable season so far. And the scalps what we've had in the Cup in terms of Arsenal and Leicester, and we've beaten Huddersfield tonight. And Stevie Cooper's playing a brand of football which I haven't seen for years, and I think it's just a matter of just enjoy it. And if there is a fixture congestion, it's like, well, you're doing something right. And it's under no illusions that I can put it is. I think Steve Cooper's enjoying having all these matches. The players are enjoying them. It's like focus on one game at a time and see where it takes us. And to be honest, I think we're a really fit side, and they're looked after really well. And the conditioning and the recovery is really well. So I think just take it in the stride and see what happens and really enjoy the next couple of months of the season. But no, it's been so enjoyable this season. So it's just one of those.
Okay, I'm just going to leave the final word to Ryan Yates. As you pointed out, he was voted the man of the match by Dean Ashton for ITV, and I don't think anyone would have really argued against that. As well as the contribution that we've mentioned, I'll also point out there were 2 or 3 outstanding passes. He was back to the Iniesta that someone coined earlier this season, and so that thing you said about, getting the conditioning right, getting the attitude right to get results. Well, I think Ryan Yates is actually really setting an example. He's a shining example of what Forest can do, and the level of performance and results improvements that we have seen all season. Anyway, we need to wrap it up there. So obviously the Liverpool match will be on the 20th of March. So a couple of weeks away. In the meantime, we've got home games against Reading and QPR coming up in the league. And obviously we'll be bringing you match reports from those. And I want to say thank you very much to Tom, and thank you to Brady from the And He Takes That Chance podcast for joining us and providing a view from the opposition. And most of all, thank you to you, listener.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
BetMGM welcomes you with a special offer on the NBA. Simply place a $10 moneyline wager on today's game. If either team hits a three-pointer, you'll win $200 in free bets, regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use bonus code CHAMPION200 when you make your bet. BetMGM is proud to be an authorized gaming partner of the NBA, and there's endless ways to make it rain with the king of sportsbooks. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code CHAMPION200 to win $200 in free bets if a three-pointer is made in today's game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Washington, D.C. and Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.